On the Track is a monthly webTV show about cryptozoology, natural history, green issues and whatever else the team feel like making up as they go along. Enjoy!
Hello, my name's Archie and I'm the most important person here at the Centre for Fortean Zoology. I'm also a bit of a doggy historian and I'm always interested in the exploits of famous doggies from the past, such as Snowy and Nipper. He is Master's voice dog, who was very clever and I think he's a big hero of mine. Well, I was very interested to find on YouTube a piece of footage of Nipper being particularly impressive. And I live my life by his teachings. My name's Archie Downs and this is my Auntie Charlotte, and welcome to another episode of On the Track. Hello. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it seems that every time I'm trying to put out an episode of On the Track, something happens. And this time it's been two somethings. First of all, you may remember that this time last year I managed to injure my right foot and I was in and out of hospital for about 6 months. Now look, somehow I've managed to do the same with both feet. And also, Karina is in hospital. She's a real trooper, that girl. She's even done a few pieces to camera, which we're going to be able to use at some point. But things are really rather weird. So if this comes over as a really rather weird episode of On the Track Extra, or On the Track, don't be surprised. Enjoy. So, here we are again, Charlotte. A Happy New Year, my dear.
Happy New Year to you.
This is actually the first time that Charlotte and I have seen each other since the middle of December, on the day when Karina had to be rushed into hospital and everything went decidedly awry. I'm not going to say that we had a nice Christmas. We didn't. Everybody knows what happened, and believe it or not, I was very pleased when 2019 went over the horizon and we started a new year with a hope of a brighter and more successful year in front of us. It's weird, isn't it, Charlotte, how one gets superstitious about the beginning of a new year and one always thinks, yay, all sorts of good stuff's going to happen. Or don't you?
No, not really.
So what is your New Year's resolution? What do you want to happen?
Nothing in particular. I want to get my driver's license.
Well, that's a pretty big resolution.
Yeah, but it's not really a resolution. I've been wanting that since last year.
Well, hopefully you'll get it. We've had a general election since we saw each other last, and I'm not going to ask if you're pleased with the result, because there are very few people, not everyone within the CFZ family, but very few people within the CFZ family are. But I'll tell you one thing, there is one Conservative politician who I believe is now semi-retired, for whom I have a lot of time, and that is a lady called Ruth Davidson, who for a while was the head of the Conservative Party in Scotland. And on the day of the election, when the Scottish Nationalist Party were claiming that they would get over 50 seats in the new government, Ruth Davidson, who is a remarkable lady, said that if that actually happened, she'd go skinny dipping in Loch Ness. Which I think is a pretty cool thing for a Conservative politician to say on television.
Yeah.
And as it is, her modesty was retained because the Scottish Nationalist Party didn't get over 50 seats. They got 48, I think. And so Ruth Davidson didn't have to get a kit off and jump into the waters of Scotland's largest lake. But 2019 apparently was the best year for Loch Ness Monster sightings since 1983. And what I want to do today, because it'll come as no surprise to anyone, particularly you, Charlotte, to know that 15 days into the new year there haven't been any Loch Ness Monster sightings yet. Probably because the Loch Ness Monster, like the rest of us, doesn't like the rain and cloud and yuckiness. But here we go. What's that?
A bit of water.
What's that?
Grass and a bit of water in the background.
What's that?
Shrubbery and a circle.
In the circle, do you think that's
There's a
the Loch
speck.
Ness Monster? What's that?
I actually can't tell what that is. The reflection kind of made it look like it was some clouds, so...
And this.
Another speck.
And this.
I don't know.
At least
It's just water.
yeah, but with the ripple, at least that looks like there's something in the water a bit. And what on earth? What's that?
It's just... I can't see anything in that at all.
No, neither can I. And this?
There's some splashing in it.
This is no padding in the photograph. And
Another speck.
and well, that's quite interesting, because if you look there, this is something from the sonar fish finder, and that does look like it's something fairly large in the water, probably a shoal of fish. Oh dear, I don't know about you, Charlotte, I would really love one of these pictures to actually show a head and neck coming out of the water at you.
Yeah.
And wouldn't it be brilliant if there was actual conclusive proof that there was a Loch Ness Monster in one of these photos? But what about this?
Isn't that the bit of the tree sticking out the lake?
Yep. And this.
There's nothing in there.
I can't see anything in there. And this. Another organophragm. And there's your friend the tree stump again. So, is any of this conclusive proof that there is a great water monster lurking in the northern lakes?
No.
Sad, isn't it? What we do have for everybody is what I teased about in the last episode. Here is an exclusive interview with a lady who lives very near Loch Ness, who's an occultist, a follower of Aleister Crowley, and can give us the first part of an extensive interview in which she gives us the inside scoop on what really happened last year when there was a second terrible fire at Boleskine House, Aleister Crowley's and guitarist Jimmy Page's old gaff. Over to you, Leanne. Okay, well, tell us about the fire. If you can give me some background to that as well, please.
About what, sorry?
About the fire at Boleskine, because there's been two, haven't there?
Yes, two, that's the thing. I mean, the first one, I still am none the wiser about what went on there, but the second one, there was talk, because as you might be aware, there was a group that had bought the house and they were going to turn it into a retreat. And they were actually going to welcome Crowley followers to, I don't know, to continue, his teachings. I was going to go. Now, when that fire happened, I actually went on the night. I couldn't get very near because obviously there was a lot of commotion. There was, fire engines and whatever. So I couldn't get close to the house. I tried to take a picture, in fact, just like over just of everything, and it came out black, which was weird. But there was talk then amongst people that the locals were thinking that, well, they've got this misguided view about Aleister Crowley being a Satanist and he sacrifices people and this and that and the other rubbish. And there was talk that they didn't want the people to open this retreat because they thought it was going to invite a bunch of devil worshippers into foyers, and well, you can maybe put two and two together if you know what I mean. So people were thinking that it was people, but nobody's ever been caught, nobody's been charged. It's so strange, and I do wonder if it is these Christian types or religious, maybe not Christian types, but religious types who have this misguided view. And they've damaged it. That's it. I don't think it can be really salvaged now. I mean, it's such a shame.
Do you think the same sort of people were responsible for the first fire?
I think
8 years ago?
It's entirely possible, because the place has always been, as I said to you, there's misguided people that believe things, and they this devil worshipping and Satan were all this nonsense. And what people don't understand, as I'm sure you're very aware of, they are afraid of and often lash out at. So, no, I think it's entirely possible. The fact that nobody's ever been sort of caught for it, that makes me wonder as well. I don't know, there's just such strange coincidences that go on around the place. I don't know, but yes, I think it's entirely possible, absolutely. Yeah.
I think Crowley himself probably finds it all rather amusing.
He would absolutely love it, because I'm very into Crowley. He's a sort of, well, I don't know if hero's the right word, but ever since I was quite young, my dad got me into all that sort of stuff. And there's so many myths about him, about this cat, with sex with goats and human sacrifice. It's all rubbish. He perpetuated the myths about himself, so he would absolutely probably find this. I mean, one of the things I just find absolutely hilarious is when he lived at Boleskine, he would often go into foyers wearing a kilt with nothing underneath, and he took great delight in standing so that the wind would catch up and people would get an eyeful. So, that's one of the stories that still, to this day, people talk about. So, I just think it is a shame the place had to come to the demise that it did, but I don't know, it's sad that people feel like they have to do that.
It's sad, but then again, Crowley, like we said, would be laughing, because he was the one who christened himself the wickedest man alive.
Yes. I mean, he was a showman,
Of course he was.
And he's not what people think. And as soon as, because I've got tattoos, I've got Thelemic tattoos and stuff, and I often wear T-shirts with Crowley on it and stuff, and people are like, "Oh, you're a devil worshipper." No, I just laugh it off. I can't be bothered explaining to stupid people. It's just daft.
No, I mean, I know perfectly well he wasn't a devil worshipper. He was also a prankster who found all this stuff very amusing.
Yes, very much so. I also find it interesting in his days of him climbing mountains, and he left people to die because he couldn't be bothered going and helping them. That's
He's probably the sort of person that you would have wanted to go and have a drink with, but
you put
Oh,
the pigeons on
absolutely.
display for the weekend?
Can you imagine? Oh my goodness, yeah. I will say though, I've had experiences at Boleskine House before it was obviously burnt down when I was in my teens, and that will stay with me forever.
Well, I think we'll leave Leanne there for now, but we will be back with her in the next episode of On the Track Extra in order to find out what it was that spooked her when she was a teenager at Boleskine House in the graveyard. And until then, do what thou wilt, dudes.
And now over to Karina for our regularly monthly look at the Watcher of the Skies.
Some people within cryptozoology believe that there are still dinosaurs on the Earth. Dinosaurs thrived in the warm temperatures and mild weather of the Mesozoic era. Then, one day, 66 million years ago, a huge meteorite crashed to Earth in what is now the Gulf of Mexico. All of a sudden, the Earth became much colder and darker. Plants died and food became scarce, and 3/4 of the creatures living on Earth, including the dinosaurs, went extinct. But one group of dinosaurs survived, and they still survive today. Birds are descendants of theropod dinosaurs and have spread all across the globe. Some are tiny, some are enormous, and they're all sizes in between. I'm fascinated by these creatures, which is why John called me the Watcher of the Skies. Look what Carl and his dad John made me. It's a duck. A duck with a pink head. But could such a thing be? Well, 100 years ago, certainly. The waterfowl collection owned by Alfred Ezra at Fox Warren Park in Surrey had them in the 1920s. Ezra was perhaps the best known bird collector and bird breeder of his time, and it's a great shame that as far as we can tell his pair never bred. The only known photographs of the species was taken here and include one of a pair taken around 1925 by David Seth Smith. Some of these birds were also kept in the aviaries of John Theodore Delacour in Clare, France, and maybe elsewhere. But why all the fuss? The pink-headed duck was a large diving duck that was once found in parts of the Gangetic plains of India, Bangladesh, and in the riverine swamps of Myanmar, but considered likely extinct since the 1950s. Numerous searches have failed to provide any evidence of continued existence. It has been suggested that it may still exist in the inaccessible swamp regions of northern Myanmar, and sighting reports from that region have led to its status being declared as critically endangered rather than truly extinct. The genus placement has been disputed, and while some have suggested that it is closely related to the red-crested pochard, others have placed it in a separate genus of its own. It is unique in the pink coloration of the head combined with the dark body. A prominent wing patch and a long slender neck are features shared with the common Indian spot-billed duck, leading to much confusion. The eggs have also been held as particularly peculiar in being nearly spherical in shape. Alan Octavian Hume and Stuart Baker noted that the stronghold of the species was north of the Ganges and west of the Brahmaputra, mainly in Malda, Purnia, Madhubani and Purulia districts of present-day Bihar. It was said to be less rare in Singbum. Is that Singbum or Singburn? Singbum.
Singbum.
That's a brilliant name.
I'm going to say that again, hang on. It was said to be less rare in Singbum. Hume collected a species in Manipur which he noted was very rare, hiding among dense reeds in Loktak Lake. Edward Blythe claimed that it was found in the Arakan state of Burma. A few records were also noted from Delhi, Sindh and Punjab. The birds were also reported from the Oud region, some very close to Lucknow. Specimens were shot at Najafagar Lake in the Delhi district. Apologies for any mispronunciation there. Jordan obtained specimens of the bird from further south, although he did not personally observe any in the wild until he visited Bengal. In 1988, Rory Nugent, an American birdwatcher, and Shankar Barua of Delhi reported spotting the elusive bird on the banks of the Brahmaputra. The pair started their quest for the bird at Sekoa Ghat, on the northeastern end of the river on the Indian side of the border. After 29 days of sailing, Nugent said that he saw the pink-headed duck amidst a flock of other water birds. However, Nugent and Barua's claimed sighting has not been widely accepted. Reports of pink-headed ducks after the 1960s have been received from the largely unexplored Malika and Chindwin Mayat drainages in northern Myanmar. While the area is not very well surveyed by scientists, searches have been inconclusive and confusion with the red-crested pochard and the spot-billed duck has been a common source of supposed pink-headed duck sightings. A report on a survey in the Hu Quang Valley in November 2003 concluded that there is sufficient reason to believe that pink-headed ducks may still exist in northern Myanmar's Kachin state, but a thorough survey of the Nat Kwan River between Kamaing and Shadasap in October 2005 failed to find this species. A number of interesting ducks were observed, but they turned out to be either spot-billed ducks or white-winged ducks. Suggestions have been made that the pink-headed duck may be nocturnal. In 2017, an expedition to find the species by Global Wildlife Conservation also failed, with evidence indicating that the biodiversity in the general area around Indagri Lake and its surrounding areas was heavily declining due to habitat destruction. Anecdotes from residents in the area, however, indicate that the bird may have lived in the area far more recently than the last confirmed report from 1910, possibly as recently as 2010. The reason for its disappearance was probably habitat destruction. It is not known why it was always considered rare, but the rarity is believed to be genuine and not an artefact of insufficient fieldwork, as its erstwhile habitat was frequently scoured by hunters in colonial times. The pink-headed duck was much sought after by hunters and later as an ornamental bird, mainly due to its unusual plumage. Like most diving ducks, it was not considered good eating, which should facilitate the survival of any remnant birds. The last specimen was shot in 1935 in Darbhanga, Bihar, India by C.M. Inglis, no relation, who did not even know what he had killed until his dog, a retriever, brought the bird to him. Our friend Richard Thorns has carried out a number of expeditions to Myanmar in search of these birds, but although he has met many people who claim to have seen them, he's never seen them himself. A few episodes ago we explained why, even if the technology is there to resurrect lost species for genetics, trying to do so for the passenger pigeon would not be a good idea. The passenger pigeon needed to live in enormous flocks and was probably doomed even when there were tens of thousands of these birds still alive. The pink-headed duck, however, would have lived in smaller groups, which means that if genetic resurrection does turn out to be a viable thing, then the pink-headed duck would be a perfect candidate for it. But there is no need to give up hope just yet. We may not have to resort to experimental genetic techniques. There is a fascinating precedent for the rediscovery of a presumed extinct bird in the Indian subcontinent. Jerdon's courser is a nocturnal bird belonging to the Pratincole family and is endemic to India. The bird was discovered by the surgeon naturalist Thomas C. Jerdon in 1848, but not seen again for 138 years until its rediscovery in 1986. Compared to 138 years for the species, the 85 years that it has been since the pink-headed duck was last conclusively seen in the wild is a mere bagatelle. I will be back next episode, but in the meantime I'm going to pass you over to Jonathan for his regular look at new and rediscovered species. And thank you again to Carl and his dad John for making the pink-headed duck. It's beautiful.
One of the most popular stories to have been beamed around the world in recent weeks is the story that 4 new species of walking shark had been discovered. Well, I don't know about you, but I'd never heard of walking sharks before, and so 4 new species of them is exactly the sort of thing we'd like to cover here in the New and Rediscovered section. But that was something about the story that I found slightly unsettling. If 4 new species had been discovered, that implied that at least one species was already known about. Never mind, I thought to myself, these are obviously very recently discovered fish, and so feeling content with that explanation, I put the whole thing to the back of my mind. I don't know about you, but I've been quite content to describe something of having been recently discovered if it had come to light in the last 5 years, or in the last decade at most. But I found, to my chagrin, that these fish had first been described in 1788 by none other than Abbé Pierre-Joseph Bonaterre, the bloke who's probably best known to Forteans as the man who studied Victor, the wild boy of Aveyron, and to people in my previous profession as the man who first described environmental amentia. So let's have a look at the best known of the walking sharks. Luckily for my zoological self-esteem, I've actually heard of the species, I just didn't know it could walk. The epaulet shark, Hemicillium ocellatum, is a species of long-tailed carpet shark from the family Hemicilliidae, found in shallow tropical waters off New Guinea and Australia, and possibly elsewhere. The common name of this shark comes from the very large white-margined black spot behind each pectoral fin, which are reminiscent of military epaulets. A small species, usually under 1 metre, that's 3.3 feet in old money, long, the epaulet shark has a slender body with a short head and broad, paddle-shaped paired fins. The caudal peduncle, to which the tail fin is attached, comprises over half of the shark's length. Adults are light brown above with scattered darker spots and indistinct saddles. Epaulet sharks have nocturnal habits and frequent shallow water on coral reefs or in tidal pools. This shark has evolved to cope with the severe nighttime oxygen depletion, hypoxia, in isolated tidal pools by increasing the blood supply to its brain and selectively shutting down non-essential neural functions. It's capable of surviving complete anoxia for an hour without ill effects and at much higher temperatures than most other hypoxia-tolerant animals. As an adaptation for navigating its complex reef environment, the epaulet shark moves by seemingly walking, bending its body from side to side and pushing off the substrate with its paddle-shaped pectoral and pelvic fins. Its gait is similar to that of salamanders, an example of convergent evolution. The shark is capable of swimming, but often prefers to walk along the sandy or coral bottom, even when the water is deep enough to allow it to swim freely. The cartilaginous supports of the epaulet shark's paired fins are reduced and separated when compared to other sharks, allowing them to be rotated for use as limbs. This mode of locomotion even enables the shark to crawl out of the water to access isolated tidal pools. The gait of the epaulet shark is convergently similar to those of tetrapods such as salamanders, suggesting that the movements needed for walking on land may predate and facilitated the evolution of the first terrestrial vertebrates. That is just so cool, and I really have no idea why I had not heard of this, but it doesn't really matter, I suppose. What does matter is the latest discovery. According to CNN, shark scientists spent years sampling the DNA of the only known walking shark species to estimate when they evolved, and in doing so they found 4 new species while they were at it. They've been walking, or something close to it, for at least 9 million years, but they're evolutionary superstars too. Walking sharks could actually be the most recently evolved shark on Earth. The youngest species might have evolved less than 2 million years ago, and by evolutionary standards, believe us, that's recent. And it's a major contradiction to the widely held belief that sharks are slow to evolve. The discovery proves that modern sharks have remarkable evolutionary staying power and the ability to adapt to environmental changes, said Mark Erdmann, the paper's co-author and Conservation International Vice President of Asia-Pacific Marine Programs. Erdmann says that the group hopes their research could encourage conservationists to add a few of the sharks to the IUCN Red List, the global inventory of threatened species based on how little is known about them. He continued, "A global recognition of the need to protect walking sharks will help ensure that they thrive, providing benefits for marine ecosystems and to local communities through the shark's value as tourism assets. It's essential that local communities, governments and the international public continue working to establish marine protected areas to help ensure our ocean's biodiversity continues to flourish." But how and when did they evolve? Well, it appears that during mass extinction events, carpet sharks, the group that includes walking sharks, were amongst the most affected animals. Sea levels rose and ocean temperatures dropped, pushing the sharks to migrate to warmer waters. Sharks off the coast of Australia hitched a ride, as it were, on moving tectonic plates all the way to New Guinea, researchers said. When the plates stopped shifting, the land settled, creating barriers for species to migrate, and this might be why the sharks' habitats rarely overlap. And you learn something new every day.
First there's this.
I would like to also point out that whereas every effort's been made to contact the copyright holders of these photographs, we believe that we are justified in reproducing them in this not-for-profit video using the policy of fair use. However, if there is anybody who believes that their intellectual or legal rights have been infringed, please contact us and we will do our best to bring the matter to a mutually acceptable solution.
And then there's this.
If you want to support us and help us make more content like these, please press like, subscribe, follow our Facebook page and check out our Patreon.
Thank you for watching this month's episode of On The Track. I hope you enjoyed it. We're sorry for being away for a while, but I'm glad to be back and we're glad to be producing episodes again, and I hope to see you next month. Goodbye!
Well, ladies and gentlemen, here we are at the end of another episode. It's really nice to have Charlotte back. It's really nice to be back into something which passes for normality in this ridiculous video team. What we got next episode? I have no idea what's happening next episode, but I can tell you there will be something happening next episode. I'd like to do a big thank you for everyone who's helped this time around, particularly a big shout out to Amy, that's Charlotte's mum, who told Karina how to pronounce the French place name where the bloke had pink-headed ducks. And interestingly enough, I looked up Delacour. He was actually American, not French, and he had one of the biggest and best collections of waterfowl in Europe, which was almost completely destroyed by the advancing German army in World War II. So, it's all your fault, Hitler. I'd like to say a big thank you to everybody else who's helped and to everyone who's supported us this month on Patreon. Thank you, my dears. I truly would not be able to do what we do without you. So, from me and Archie, oh, I haven't got the dog. Archie! Come on, this is your bit of cleverness. Me and Archie will see you again next month with all the other people in the CFZ on the track team. And so, until then, we'll be seeing you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, between the year 2000 and 2017, that's 17 years, I promoted something that we called the Weird Weekend, which was a conference for and by the Centre for Fortean Zoology. The Weird Weekend came to an end for all sorts of reasons, but I missed the Weird Weekend massively, and so I decided to rebrand on the track and make it more like the Weird Weekend, give it more of the zeitgeist of high strangeness and sheer silliness, as well as the hard science, which was always the hallmark of the Weird Weekend. And so, instead of coming out with an episode of nearly an hour once a month, we do our regular monthly episodes of On the Track, but they're kept down to about half an hour ago now, and in between, we aim to do them every week, but it doesn't always work out like that, we have something called On the Track Extra. And I hope you enjoy it, and just to give you another taste of what the new On the Track's like, here, taken pretty well at random, are 2 links that I think you might enjoy.